Hello, Jackets fans, and welcome to Boom and Gloom, a Columbus Blue Jackets fan podcast where I discuss the good and the bad, or as I call it, the boom and the gloom of CBJ hockey. I'm your host, Anthony. I go by Whaler Jacket in the social media world, and I am North America's longest suffering hockey fan. First a Whalers fan, and now a Jackets fan. No one out there has suffered as long or as much as I have, with regard to hockey, of course. I like to think that it kind of gives me a bit of a unique perspective when it comes to watching and analyzing hockey, because I've just about seen it all, and it has given me a pretty darn pessimistic attitude when it comes to my outlook on my favorite hockey team. Anyway, before I begin, I should also state as a bit of a reminder that I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on hockey, the NHL, or the Blue Jackets. And I don't pretend to be. I just like talking about the Jackets, and I don't have many opportunities to do so. So this podcast serves as kind of an outlet for me. I don't have sponsors or ads, and I don't beg for followers, subscribers, or likes. If you want to give me a listen, great. If not, no worries. I'm not trying to achieve a high level of fame and fortune. No, this is simply a labor of love. And if you enjoy listening to me rant and rave about the Jackets, I'm happy you are here. Thank you for taking the time to listen. So, the state of the Jackets. In my last episode, I discussed the firing of Dean Evason and the hiring of Rick Bowness. I did have another comment or two about it, though, that I wanted to share. So first of all, did you read any of the interviews with Dean Evason after he was fired? There were a few. Portsline did it, A-Race did it, and someone else too. Miguel, maybe? I can't remember. But one thing that stood out to me was that Evason seemed completely shocked by it. Like he had no clue it was coming. It hit him like a ton of bricks. And if you read between the lines, or maybe even if you didn't read between the lines, because it was kind of apparent, if you ask me, he sounded irritated with the way it was handled. And I'm not sure what I believe, to be honest, because Don Waddell has seemed to be nothing but polite, professional, and courteous with everyone he has come into contact with, from players to fans. That's what it has seemed. But Evason seemed to be very unhappy with how he was treated. He compared his treatment with, the way he was fired in Columbus. I misspoke there. He compared the way he was fired in Columbus to the way he was fired by Bill Guerin in Minnesota. So I don't know. I don't know. But I found it to be very interesting, to say the least. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I did touch on this last episode as well, was that it seems like there was a lot going on behind the scenes that we did not know about. The players seemed unhappy with Evason as coach. The common phrase that you'll hear thrown about is that he lost the room. He lost the respect of the players. And that seems more and more likely, if you ask me. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone. I am very appreciative of Dean. And I thought he did an absolutely phenomenal job last season, steering a team who was facing an unimaginable tragedy. He was the perfect coach for the team at that time. But obviously, things changed over time. And we may never know what truly happened, but I thought Elvis Merzlikins' post-game interview was very telling. Elvis, he sometimes doesn't have a filter. I mean, let's face it, right? And he tells things the way they are, tells it like it is, without any thought of being like politically or professionally correct. When Jody Shelley asked him what changed, and this was after a win, he said very matter-of-factly 2 words. He said, "New coach." And he said it twice. New coach. Emphatically. And then Yegor Chinnikov over in Pittsburgh, upon hearing the news of the firing, said that he was not surprised. And granted, his opinion on the coach and the organization had been soured beyond repair. But I still found it telling that 2 players voiced such curt or strong opinions. I remember when Ken Hitchcock was fired, Rick Nash publicly said that he was unhappy with the decision. And other players just kind of seemed like, not that they were, angry, but they were surprised. They were surprised by the decision. But I did not get that sense this time. I didn't even see it hinted at by any of the players. There was no indication to me whatsoever that any players were upset with this change. So I firmly believe that something just went sour with Dean Evason, and it reached the point of no return, just fractured beyond repair. And so Don Waddell was forced to act, and the Rick Bowness era has begun. Before I go any further, guys, I do have to say that this is not a professional podcast at all. Like, not at all. I'm sitting here with a $100 microphone from Amazon in front of my home computer, which is located in my home office, which is located right next to our family room. And right now, my wife seems to be watching TV at a very high volume, so I apologize if that is coming through. But anyway, the Rick Bowness era, it has begun well, I might say. At this moment, as I prepare this podcast episode, do this recording, the Jackets have won 5 of 6 under Rick Bowness. So because of this, I did something I had not done since probably October. And I'm not exaggerating here. I have not done this in months. I checked the standings. I wanted to take a look. For the first time in months, I wanted to see how far out of a playoff spot the Blue Jackets were after getting 10 out of 12 possible points. And unfortunately, it was just as I feared. We have been told by multiple sources as fans since Rick Bowness came on how difficult it would be to jump so many teams in the standings. So they get 10 out of 12 points, winning 5 out of 6 games, and the Jackets jumped 1 team. 5 wins, and they only jump 1 team, the New York Rangers. As I sit here on January 28th, they have jumped only the Rangers and are tied with the Senators for second to last place in the Eastern Conference. So all those people who said it was going to be extremely difficult, an extremely difficult uphill climb for the Jackets to get back into the thick of it, they were 100% correct. At this point, if the Jackets are hoping to make the playoffs, and let's face it, they still are hoping, They should be focusing more on catching the top 3 teams in the Metro, the Hurricanes, the Penguins, and the Islanders. Should the team beat the Flyers tonight, okay, I'm recording this about an hour before game time. If they beat the Flyers tonight, they could be 4 points out of third place, but still 8 points out of the last wild card spot due to just how competitive the Atlantic Division is. But in my opinion, they shouldn't be trying to catch anyone. They shouldn't be focused on the standings at all. What they should be focusing on is just simply winning. Win, win, win. Win as often as you can, and then, if you get closer to a playoff position, well, then you can start a little standings watching. But for right now, the Jackets should not be worried about where they are in the standings. Just get as many points as possible, and that's it. Now, before I move on, I have to say something. I just caught myself here. I was just thinking to myself as I was saying all that, talking about the Metro standings and how the Penguins are in second place. Oh my gosh, does this irritate me? The Penguins, they should be taking a step back. I mean, how are they still doing this? It drives me nuts. Last year I felt the same way about the Capitals. It's like their window's done. They were supposed to be stepping back, and the Blue Jackets were stepping forward. But here they are, just hanging around again in the top 3. Gosh, it drives me nuts. All right, anyway, if the Jackets truly expect to make it to the playoffs this season, this is just my opinion here, they need to win 3 out of every 4 games, on average, moving forward. There, unfortunately, is not a large margin of error, okay? And their next 5 games are not going to be easy games, but they are very winnable games. 2 against Chicago, 1 against St. Louis, 1 against Philadelphia, of course, tonight, and 1 against New Jersey. And they better be ticked off when they play New Jersey after gifting them a victory last time. Dominated the first 2 periods and then just let it go down the drain in a matter of a few minutes in the third. They need to remember that and use it as motivation when they take on the Devils in New Jersey. And that will bring them to the Olympic break. Okay? And if the Jackets head into the break winning 4 of those 5 games, I think it will go a long way in terms of their confidence coming back from the break. But as I said earlier, I'm a pessimist, and I see the Jackets going 3-2 in those games, if I had to predict. Just knowing the Jackets, knowing their history, I'm predicting 3-2, unfortunately. But I also will say that I'm never afraid to admit when I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong here and eat plenty of crow. So that brings me to my next topic, which is a topic I talk about all the time. And that is, where is this season headed? What should the Jackets do at the deadline? Obviously, my opinion can easily change depending on how the team performs. They can go on a run and pleasantly surprise me, for sure. But right now, I am sticking with the Whaler Jacket patented pessimistic Jackets view. If you go back and listen to my season preview episode, the Jackets right now are trending towards being exactly where I said they would be. A team that is close, but not quite there yet. My prediction at the start of the season was that the Jackets would not make the playoffs. And I probably made other Jackets fans angry, but I'm a realist. And realistically, I didn't think they would make it. I think they had a fantastic, surprising year last year. But now things have settled and they've come back down to earth. Now, I predicted they would be fairly close, but ultimately not make it. And again, as of right this moment, it seems that they appear to be on track to making my prediction correct. But remember, guys, I am a fan, all right? I am a fan just like you, and I would love to see them make the playoffs. I mean, what fan wouldn't? You know, I'm no fan is going to actively cheer for their fan to lose. I mean, I guess there's some circumstances, but for the most part, we want our teams to win. But I'm a realist, and I have been through 40 years of hockey pain with the Jackets and Whalers. I would know a different team if I saw one, and this team, this Blue Jackets team, is not different. This is the same old Blue Jackets team that is apparently just constantly mired in mediocrity, unable to take that extra step forward. Now, there's a chance still that they get there this season, and that's fine. But I go back to my usual question. Is it better for the Jackets to make the playoffs this season, knowing they will not go very far, probably lose in the first round if we're being honest, and then end up missing out on higher draft picks? Or would it be better for them to miss the playoffs completely, sell off a few players at the deadline, acquire some assets, and try again next year? And I know we are all sick of that second option. We are tired of waiting for next season. It sucks. And it is only getting more and more frustrating every season. But hear me out, guys, okay? I still think it's the better play. If the Jackets make the playoffs, do you honestly see them as a threat to actually win the Stanley Cup? I certainly do not. I look at teams like the Avalanche, the Lightning, the Hurricanes. Do you really see the Jackets on that level? Like beating teams of that caliber in the playoffs? Realistically? I hope you agree with me that they are just not a Stanley Cup contending team. So with that in mind, we have to step back and ask ourselves, does the value of just making the playoffs and not going very far, okay, just making the playoffs, does it outweigh the value of having better draft picks and assets acquired at the trade deadline? Well, my opinion lies with not making the playoffs and being sellers at the deadline. Sure, a first round visit would be a great experience. It would be especially for the younger players on the roster. And it would give all the players valuable playoff experience. And sure, it may light a fire under them for next season. When they know what it feels like to make the playoffs and what it takes to get there. But for me, I think it is a much better idea for the team to recognize who they are and what they are. And that is, they are a team still building, okay? They are still building towards being a cup contender. They're still a ways away. At the deadline, they should sell off assets like Jenner, maybe Coyle, maybe Christensen, maybe Goodbranson. Who else? Maybe Fabro, if you can somehow find a taker. Heck, you know what? Even talk to Severson or Provorov and see if they might want to waive their no trade clause to go to a contending team. You never know. They might just want to do that. And before I say this, okay, before I say this next thing, please remember that David Clarkson's horrible contract was traded twice. Okay? So just remember that when I say this. See if there's a taker for Elvis. Maybe a team with a little bit of desperation. Maybe a team will be desperate enough. But you sell, okay? Sell at the deadline. Get some prospects in return or some draft picks. Assets that you can either use to further develop your team or cash in later and trade for a bigger name over the summer. You can always re-sign Jenner and Coyle again in the offseason. If you really want them back with the team, re-sign them in the offseason. The Jackets did that. They did that with Jeff Sanderson all those years ago. So there's a precedent for it. And the roster spots that become available when you trade these guys away, you bring up players like Pinelli, DBB, James Malatesta, Jordan Dumais, Corson Kuhlmans, and I could never say his name, Svozil. Give them a shot on the big club and just see what they have. You know, they might not have anything, but then you give them a chance on the big stage and evaluate them. You use that time. But my opinion right now is that the Jackets are just not ready. So they should be thinking more about building for next season and stockpiling some talent in their prospect pool. Because I got news for you, okay? This sounds horrible, but I'm going to say it. This team's savior is not in Cleveland right now. Luca Del Belbaluz is not going to make the NHL roster and become Macklin Celebrini. Okay, Luca Pinelli is not going to show up and suddenly become Connor Bedard. And Caden Lindstrom, heck, there is a chance that he may never play in the NHL. There is a chance. We have to admit that. The Jackets need to get some high-end prospects in their system again, because the ones we have been hoping would blossom into superstars are here now and are not yet superstars, and they may never become them. I still have hope for players like Fantilli and Johnson, but those hopes took a massive hit this year. A massive hit. Our cupboard needs to be restocked, and I hope Don Waddell sees it that way too. All right, now, I call this podcast Boom and Gloom, but let's face it, 90% of my time talking to you this season has been all gloom. Justifiably so, if you ask me, but gloomy talk nonetheless. So I wanted to throw in something very positive in this episode, and that is Mason Marchment. The dude has been on fire since arriving in Columbus from Seattle. At the time of this recording, he has 11 points in his 9 games as a Blue Jacket, and that is including 8 goals, including a hat trick against Tampa Bay, and 3 assists. He's been a great fit on a line with Kirill Marchenko and Adam Fantilli. You may have noticed that I did not include him in my last segment when I spoke about selling off players at the deadline. That was on purpose. I think he is the one pending free agent that I would like to see the Jackets hold on to at the deadline. And he's a bit older at 30. Okay, he's not, a young guy on the rise. But he's a guy who can easily give you top 6 minutes for a few more years. My hope is that Waddell brings him back, but doesn't overpay him. And for the record, let me also be clear here. I think Charlie Coyle has been fantastic for the team this season. He has been just fantastic. I would rather not lose him either, but he is getting older, 34 years old, I think, and he would give you a haul from another team looking to stabilize their playoff roster at the deadline. Then, again, you can bring him back in the offseason if you want to. But anyway, back to Marchment. He's been a great fit here in Columbus, and I hope he sticks around to play in our top 6 for a couple more years. My only worry, as I have mentioned in the past, is that Don Waddell will sign him to a big extension, and then his production will immediately fall off a cliff. Wouldn't that be the most Blue Jackets thing to do? In the meantime, though, I hope he keeps playing confidently and producing and earning either a new contract with the Jackets or a big haul at the trade deadline. Excuse me. So what does everyone think about Rick Bowness so far? I really like him so far. I love his attitude in front of the camera, which I assume is an accurate reflection of what he's like off camera as well. He seems very down to earth, very personable. His experience shows. And I feel like thinking about him being personable, I feel like he's more so than any other Jackets coach to date. I love the way he talks in interviews, the way he seems to relate to players, and more importantly, what he is saying to his team seems to be resonating in a positive way. 5-1 in 6 games is a good start. We have seen Kent Johnson begin to wake up. He's still stirring, but hopefully he's on the way to a full awakening now. Adam Fantilli scored last game. I think that was like his second goal in 23 games. So hopefully this is him waking up too. I think my only question, not a complaint, but a question so far that I've had about Rick Bowness is Voronkov on the 4th line. If it were me, I would move Olivier down to the 4th line and put Voronkov on the 3rd. I understand the coaching staff wants, more out of him, more out of Voronkov. And frankly, I think most fans do too, because I do. He, in my opinion, does not use his size fully to his advantage. He should be much more of a power forward type. So that's why that's what I would do. Okay, Voronkov to line 3, Olivier to line 4. Just see how that works out. I love Olivier. And I wouldn't really call this a demotion for him. But let's face it, when he was brought to the Jackets, everyone assumed he would be a 4th line staple. Olivier was going to be on the 4th line. But then he had an anomaly of a year last season, putting up offense. I think it was 18 goals. And so Evason put him on the 3rd line. Maybe deservedly so. He was putting up the points. But now he's come back down to earth. So I think he should be playing on the 4th line and giving Voronkov a little more ice time. And of course, if that doesn't work, they could swap him back or move Miles Wood around, because Miles Wood returns from injury tonight. And speaking of that, in addition to Miles Wood returning, Denton Mateychuk returns after missing 6 games. Because of that, the Jackets had to make some roster moves. They opted to keep Christensen and Zamula. I think Fabro may still be out with an injury, so that makes sense. But that means they had 1 roster spot left and 3 players: Danton Heinen, Zach Aston Reese, Brandon Gaunce. The team opted to keep Heinen and sent Gaunce and Aston Reese to Cleveland. I feel a bit for Aston Reese. This is his first demotion to the AHL since the team claimed him before the start of last season. And I would imagine that he had some high expectations coming into this season, just to continue being a lineup regular. I am surprised they decided to keep Heinen over both Czar and Gauntz. I don't feel like Heinen brings much, if anything, more than Gauntz and Czar. And Gauntz is a center, and I feel like he has played decently, especially in shorthanded situations. In fact, I would rather have Gauntz in the lineup than Isaac Lundestrom. Lundestrom, if I'm being honest here, is quickly becoming the next Wenberg for me. Meaning, because I have to kind of explain how I felt about Wenberg, he's the player I feel offers the least to the Jackets forward group. I read some fan talk on Blue Sky recently, and one person said that Lundestrom is just that kind of player that coaches and other players seem to love for some reason, and fans can't understand. And I'm one of those fans. I don't understand it. And I've said this many times, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I still feel the Jackets were better off keeping Corrali or Danforth instead of Lundstrom. Okay. Anyway, out of those four players, Lundestrom, Gauntz, Aston Reese, Heinen, if it were me, I would want Gauntz in there. He'd be my choice. All right, so that was all the bigger stuff I wanted to talk about today. I do have some smaller pieces I'll move on to, beginning with the Jackets game against the Los Angeles Kings being rescheduled for March 9th. First of all, let me say, I understand the decision to cancel the game. The weather was crazy bad. As I record this, I'm a teacher who has missed his third straight day of school and will miss a fourth straight day tomorrow because of all the snow and the cold temperatures. It was bad. I get the decision. But I am surprised by it. The Kings were already in town, ready to play. The Jackets had their morning skate, ready to play. I was just very surprised the league decided to postpone it. I assume they did it out of respect for the fans who had to travel on treacherous roads and then find places to park with the huge piles of snow and then walk to and from the arena in the bitter cold. And not just the fans, but all the arena workers as well. It obviously is never just the two teams on the ice at an NHL game, right? I mean, you have the ushers, the concession workers, security guards, many others. There were a lot of people that needed to get to and from the arena safely last night. So I understand the decision. Again, I was just surprised that's what they decided. But I do have to complain, of course, because this ends up biting the Jackets in the butt. The game has been rescheduled for March 9th. The Jackets already had 16 games in March. Now they have 17. On average, that's more than every other day. That is a crazy amount of games. However, I know that most teams will have a similar schedule because of the crunch created by the Olympic break. I get it. But what irks me the most is that it gives them another back-to-back game. They already have the most, or close to the most, I haven't looked up the exact number, the most or close to the most back-to-back games out of any other team in the NHL. And now they have another. And it involves additional travel. They have to play the next night, March 10th, in Tampa Bay. And of course it's Tampa Bay. It couldn't be, a less daunting team. No, of course. It has to be Tampa Bay, top 3 team in the conference, who will be just itching for revenge after getting beaten 8-5 by the Jackets at Nationwide Arena last week. So I think it's safe to say that this storm screwed the Jackets big time. I will be shocked, if the Jackets end up winning both the games on March 9th and 10th. And now, for an unpopular opinion. It was recently announced that Greg Murray, the Blue Jackets in-arena PA announcer, since their inception into the league, would be retiring at the end of this season. I like Greg Murray's voice. I think he has done a great job as the announcer for the team's games. Except for one thing. And this is where the unpopular opinion comes in. At least I think it's unpopular. I have never liked what he says when the Blue Jackets get a power play. For those of you who don't know what I mean, I'm going to give you my horrible, horrible impression. Whenever the Jackets are about to get a power play opportunity, he says in the mic, "Jackets on the power play." I'm sorry, but I have always hated that. And hate is a strong word, but I have really hated that since day one. I think they could have come up with something far better. And I have to admit, I think what makes it sound even worse is that the Jackets seem to always have a horrible power play. So the tone of the announcement, the tone of the way he says it, seems to insinuate good things are coming. They're getting a power play. And they often don't come. You know, it seems to insinuate the Jackets are about to have a significant advantage that they don't often profit from. It's like, heck yeah, we're about to do our power play now. And of course, it is nothing spectacular ever to speak of. So I wish Greg Murray the absolute best, and I thank him for his quarter century of service and for bringing his almost iconic voice to Nationwide Arena every game night. But I hope that with a new announcer comes a new power play announcement. Because again, in my opinion, ours is just so lame. I have lots of ideas for this. I'll share a couple with you. One is something so simple, but in my opinion, infinitely better. Start saying the same announcement, okay? Jackets on the... And then have all the fans shout, "Power play!" Very simple. Jackets on the... And then fans shout, "Power play." Or, I don't like this one as much, but the announcer says, "It's time for a blue." And the fans can shout, "Jackets." And the announcer can shout, "Power." And the fans can shout, "Play." Just something like that. Something different than what we have. There's plenty of options. I just hope they decide to change it for next season, because out goes Greg Murray, so out goes that power play announcement. It is time to refresh it. And all right, seem to be losing my voice a little bit here, getting a little bit groggy, so it's a good thing that that's all I have for today's episode. Please feel free to contact me. Let me know your thoughts on anything I have talked about on today's episode or any other Blue Jackets topics. In fact, I would love to hear what everyone else thinks about my power play announcement opinion. Do you agree with me that it's lame? Or at least that we need a new type of announcement next season just to freshen things up? Let me know what you think. You can find me on the Blue Sky app. just search for Whaler Jacket. I'm also on Instagram, also at Whaler Jacket. Or you can even just use old-fashioned email and reach me at whalerjacket@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. I welcome your comments, thoughts, suggestions, and questions. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time on Boom and Gloom, take care, stay warm, stay safe, and go Jackets.